Latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So, New York Attorney General Letitia James, you can call her Tish, made her first public appearance since being indicted. And it was at a Zoran Mamdani rally. By the way, she still can't properly pronounce his name, even though she calls him her brother. The scene, I was really trying to wrap my head around it. The scene was like David Cronenberg meets Stanley Kubrick meets Mike Judge. I don't know if I can unpack that more than just to say, like, Dead Zone meets Clockwork Orange meets Idiocracy. With this huge banner and sign at the podium, "Our time has come," Tish James unfurled with these words.
It is so good to be here with all of you, standing with my very good friend, my little brother, and one of the boldest voices in the history of New York politics, Zoran Mamdani. We are here tonight because we are ready to turn the page on the cynical, broken politics of the past. Yeah. You see, I know what it feels like to be attacked for just doing your job. But I also know what it feels like to overcome adversity. And so I stand on solid rock. And I will not bow. I will not break. I will not bend. I will not capitulate. I will not give in. I will not give up. You come for me, you gotta come to all of us. All of us. Every single one of us. We're all in this together.
Now, for someone who I'm sure was in attendance at the rally yesterday, Christopher Whalen joins us, chairman of Whalen Global Advisors, editor of the Institutional Risk Analyst, and author of Inflated: Money, Debt, and the American Dream, second edition. Chris, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. How was the rally?
I have no idea. I did not attend. Thank God.
Interesting. I'm sort of tiring of the, you come for my people, you come through me, you come for me, you come through my people. The formulation is getting a bit quotidian for me. I don't know about you.
Well, it is, and I doubt many of her people are going to show up in the Eastern District of Virginia. So that's a small problem there.
Yes, well, it's a logistical issue. Yeah.
Yeah, and, honestly, whereas you could argue that the attack on Lisa Cook, the Fed governor, was a little bit over the top, this one, I think, is pretty tightly nailed down, and I have a funny feeling she's going to lose that litigation. So,
well, and it's sort of like, in her case, by the way, you've got a real troika going there with Hochul and Tish James and Mamdani on deck. I think we still got you with Pritzker, our Attorney General Kwame Roll, and Brandon Johnson, but it's close, in terms of who has the bigger kakistocracy.
It would be fascinating to compare them in a public forum. We could just line them up and let them speak.
Yeah, or like a spelling bee. Yeah,
but Hochul is lost. She doesn't have much of a political base. Remember, she was lieutenant governor for Andy Cuomo, and now she has to embrace all of these crazy people in New York City. But by definition, these politicians are totally unmarketable in the rest of the country. So they can say what they want. Even AOC, she was talking a little bit about going for the Senate. She could probably beat Chuck Schumer, but a national run for her? No, it just doesn't export well. So
Yeah, and the Tish James story, it's sort of like that Des Moines superintendent. The more scrutiny, the worse it gets. Now we find out about her niece who has some problems, and this is going to get more and more embarrassing as this case proceeds. But hey, I don't know if that
is fair play, Dan. And they
yeah.
should never have done this to the president. That law that they used to go after him was absurd. Even the judges said that. And she gets everything she deserves. As an upright, independent attorney general, she should have said no. She should have said, I understand you've got problems with Mr. Trump, but this law is really not appropriate for that. So,
well, right.
It's what it is.
If she were different, she wouldn't be the same. No, I get it. I want to get your take on something more important than Tish James' political future. This piece from the Telegraph. Ford Motor Company CEO Jim Farley, other top business leaders are quote unquote terrified over China's breakneck technological advancements, warning that the Asian superpower's innovations could crush American companies if they don't act fast. Farley from Ford, after touring Chinese factories, was left reeling by the cutting-edge tech packed into their vehicles, including self-driving software, facial recognition systems. The cost and the quality of their vehicles is far superior to what I see in the West, said Ford CEO Jim Farley. And also, it's not just China outpacing U.S. car companies. Greg Jackson, the head of the British energy supplier Octopus, described a jaw-dropping visit to a quote-unquote dark factory churning out mobile phones with barely a human in sight. We visited a dark factory producing some astronomical number of mobile phones, he said. The process was so heavily automated that there were no workers on the manufacturing side, just a small number who were there to ensure the plant was working. You get this sense of a change where China's competitiveness has gone from being about government subsidies and low wages to a tremendous number of highly skilled, educated engineers who are innovating like mad. And there are more comments from other Western industrialists in the same variety about other industries, including a electric vehicle billionaire from electric vehicle maker from Australia. So your reaction to this in the context of the ongoing back and forth between Trump and Xi over trade policy?
Well, the back and forth is about, Xi, I think, is trying to balance off his constituencies at home, which is his military wants him to get tough with the U.S. and with Trump. These foreign business leaders who are impressed by the Chinese, you heard the same thing a decade ago. I know that the state in China focuses enormous resources on production, and that's what they do well. It's kind of reminiscent of the Japanese 30 and 40 years ago. Everyone was terrified of them. But to me, I still see China as a very weak country that ultimately has obsessively focused on imitating the West. But are they going to take over the world? I don't think so. Their system is still broken politically, and until we fix that,
Well, so what is Farley doing when he makes those sorts of statements? Is he posturing? Is he trying to get something out of the U.S. government or attention on something from the U.S. government that he otherwise doesn't feel like he's getting? Is that what the game is here?
I don't know. I obviously they don't want Washington to take policies that are going to hurt their ability to compete. Clearly, you see this with the Koreans as well. Look at the Hyundais, for example. They're very impressive vehicles. The Koreans are just as good as the Chinese when it comes to manufacturing. So all of the U.S. makers have, made great strides in recent years and decades, but they're still behind the foreigners, and they know it. Ford makes beautiful products; their trucks are still top of the line, but are they competitive globally with the stuff that's coming out of Asia? I don't know. The Asians are extremely good at this, and they do have lower costs because they subsidize so many things. Healthcare, for example, they don't have to bear that cost. So I guess the way I look at it is there's a lot of politics involved here. Do the automakers in Detroit want better treatment from Trump? No tariffs, things like that, of course.
J.P. Morgan announced they're putting $10 billion of their own cash towards defense, AI, and rare earth companies. And this is in direct response to Beijing making it official that Chinese companies need government permission to export critical materials used in chips, EVs, and military hardware. So this is, it's another layer of the equation when it comes to this relationship between China and the United States. We had our friend Scott the Cow Guy Shellady on yesterday too, and one of the arguments that he was making is just can we just dispense with this idea that we're going to be in a collaborative, mutually beneficial relationship with China and get on with it already. Stop pretending that we can build a trust relationship with them and just start focusing on our own production and filling our own gaps when it comes to the need to be more self-sufficient. Is that your view?
Oh, very definitely. The Chinese don't believe in Western rules of engagement. The whole notion of a balanced trade relationship between nations does not occur in China. They're looking for dominance. They're looking for asymmetry in Asia, where they can basically bully their neighbors and not have to worry about the U.S. Navy and U.S. military power. And on the commercial side, yes, we have to be self-sufficient. I think the president needs to lay down the line that says we should not buy anything from China. And if we have to stop importing their products, fine. We'll go out and substitute. That, to me, is the logical progression, because there's no way we can change the way the Chinese look at the world. They're still angry from 150 years of foreign colonialism and the Japanese and everything else. And as long as the Communist Party is running China, that's going to remain. It's they don't get mad at Xi Jinping in China. They look at him as a father figure and someone who will defend them against foreign oppression. So this whole idea that we could see the evolution of a liberal state in China with the Communist Party involved is ridiculous. They want to have a war. War is how they justify their existence and keep themselves in power, whether it's economic war or actual war. So, to me, that makes a lot of sense what your guest was saying.
What about the EU? The Western European nations, if they continue to destroy their economies, that doesn't necessarily redound to our benefit, right?
No.
we want them to be vital, and it's very difficult to be vital. You just had a bunch of airline CEOs from EU countries say we have these mandates with respect to our carbon emissions and to use green fuel, quote unquote green fuels, but we're not getting the production of green fuel that we need. So there's a disconnect here between your vision for a brave new world and what the reality on the ground and in the air is. And it just seems, again, despite the market feedback and the economic consequences, that these Western European leaders can't seem to get their minds right in terms of, promoting things like, capitalism.
It's deeper than that. The European ruling class decided a long time ago that commercial activities and the people involved in commerce are bad. It's almost an Asian perspective, going back to like the 17th century. So, I'll give you an example. There's enormous amounts of gold and other metals in Europe. Can you operate those mines in the regulatory environment that we have in Europe? No, absolutely not. So they put obstacles in front of business for reasons, that people have probably forgotten. And as a result, you just don't see the kind of growth that you hope for in Europe. The state takes away so much of the economy for itself and leaves very little for the private sector. I'll give you banking. Most banks in the EU have to go outside of the block to look for customers. Middle market lending, that sort of thing, they can't do it. Mortgages, no, the government does that. So until they roll back the state in Europe and start to give business a little bit more freedom of action, I don't see much hope. it's a mindset that we don't have in this country. In the U.S., business people are still admired and to some degree encouraged. The Democrats are a lot more like the Europeans than the Republicans, obviously. But when you have a president like Donald Trump, business is given at least the opportunity to go out and do what they want to do. They're not oppressed. The mortgage industry is an exception here, of course. But other than that, the automakers, all the rest of them, they have some minor annoyances. Basically, they can run their businesses the way they want to. That's not the case in Europe. In Europe, the politicians are the top of the food chain.
Yeah, and so is this in part, the conversation that he had about Argentina and with Milei in the room yesterday, talking about President Trump, was interesting. I mean, he had this to say about the future U.S.-Argentinian relationship as it pertains to Milei.
If the president doesn't win, I know the person that he'd be running against, I believe, probably. We probably have the person. A person is extremely far left and a philosophy that got Argentina into this problem in the first place. So we would not be generous with Argentina if that happened. If he loses, we are not going to be generous with Argentina.
That's an unmistakable message to the Argentinian electorate. Keep this guy if you want America to help with the dollarization and growing the Argentinian economy through the relationship between the two countries. And it seems to me maybe because of the stagnation in Western Europe, we need to be encouraging those who are oriented towards free market economics and growth, like our friend Milei in Argentina.
No, I think that's right, and we have been very supportive of Milei. He was not able to push through to a full dollarization in Argentina, and it's ironic because much of the rest of the region is de facto dollarized, even though they have their own currencies. Much of what goes on across the border in Uruguay, for example, everything is dollars. And they've had enormous stability as a result. Their currency has remained very strong as Argentina has slid. So, the socialism that you see in Argentina is really virulent. It's a kind of left-wing nonsense and a creation of dependency for the poor that is much like what you see in New York. Same thing. The two progressive capitals of the world are Buenos Aires and New York City. So I think that, if the U.S. sees Milei lose, we'll probably withdraw financial support and the currency will go to hell. It's very sad, but we've had to support them before, going back, many years. So,
but more to the point than even doing a deal with them, more to the point is helping to incubate growth-oriented economies for our own interests, as the EU shrinks in terms of its economic power because of its the self-inflicted wounds you were just describing.
Well, that's not in Central Europe. If you really look at Europe today, the Central European countries, what you used to call Eastern Europe, are pretty prosperous. Mm-hmm. In the West, that we have problems. France, for example, total disaster. And again, you have this technocratic elite that thinks that they can tell everybody what to do. And that's what it comes down to. So yes, we should encourage countries that embrace the free market democratic model and shun the rest of them. But why should we help them if they're going to destroy their own countries? I think it's very logical progression.
Chris Whalen is chairman of Whalen Global Advisors, editor of the Institutional Risk Analyst, and author of Inflated: Money, Debt, and the American Dream, second edition. Chris, thanks as always.
Have a great day.
You too. And Chris joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
A great smile can make you feel happy and confident. So when you consciously conserve your teeth,